Welcome to Coast to Coast Sports, College Football Edition. I'm Joseph Caulo, your host, and today we have a full slate of college football analysis. We'll recap ASU's performance last week, preview the Texas Tech game, and all the big matchups across the country this weekend. Here we go. So I'm joined here with my good friends Jacob Lev and Ryan Sundeen. We got a big weekend ahead of us in college football, but first we're going to take a look back to last weekend. Obviously, not a good weekend for the Sun Devils, a 30-20 loss to San Diego State at home. I'll start with you, Ryan. Kind of what did you see in that game? What went wrong for ASU?
Well, for ASU, we had to key up on Rashad Penny. At UC Davis game, he had 197 yards. So we needed to know about him. So during coming into our game, he survived and got 353 all-purpose yards and 3 touchdowns in 3 different ways. So our defense should have been keying up on him, but we just let him run free, and our defense had missed tackles all over the place, and we just needed to tighten it up.
I think going back to the New Mexico State game, I think one of the major problems was defense, and that's something that we probably needed to improve on before facing San Diego State. Didn't seem like we made those necessary improvements. Also, the O-line, once again, they have to really solidify that. And besides that, also, John Humphreys dropped a touchdown pass. Can't do that. Every single wide receiver has to.
And if you remember, this is a critical point in the game, because that was a point with, if you have that touchdown catch, you have an opportunity to go ahead and actually take a lead there early in the second half. You could say that changes the mojo of the game, but that messed things up. I mean, the defense, in their defense, so to speak, they gave up really only 20 points because out of those 30 points, one of those touchdowns was returned by Rashad Penny. Obviously, he did it. He hurt everybody. And then also, one of those field goals came after a shanked punt where San Diego State got the ball at like the 15-yard line. So the defense only giving up 20 points, I think I'd be okay with that as a coach. We should be able, as an offense, to score more than 20 points against San Diego State. So I think the biggest problem is the offensive line right now. San Diego State's rushing 3-4 guys, and they're getting to Manny Wilkins every time. That can't happen. He's not going to be able to stay healthy. So this week, really got to play with some attitude on the offensive line is what I'd say. But going into Tech, obviously they don't have a great defense, but out of last week, it wasn't a perfect week. What was a strength? What was maybe somebody that shined out in the loss? Who do you have from last week?
Well, I'm going to go with Manny Wilkins. I think he had another solid week. I think the game against New Mexico State, he was actually like a pretty solid quarterback. This week, he kind of took a little step back, but I still think he showed that he probably should be the starter right now. I mean, I know he's on a short leash from Todd Graham because they got Blake Barnett waiting in the shadows. But Manny Wilkins is showing that he probably should be the starter until he shows us he probably shouldn't be. So
Who were you impressed by last week?
I mean, sadly, I'm going to have to say Manny Wilkins as well. He did great. He threw for 298, almost hit 300 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and then what really showed me something was in the fourth quarter, we had a 3rd and 37, and we hit a 53-yard touchdown. And that just shows that even though we might have been losing, his will to win is still there, and that drives me for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he does keep fighting. I think it's pretty evident that he's the guy that kind of the team's bought into. Now, unfortunately, the team's kind of got to back him up, and defense has got to step up offensive line, because unless you start getting W's, that's ultimately what you're judged by as a quarterback in this league. So last week wasn't a great week for the Sun Devils. When we come back after this break, we'll preview this week's game in Lubbock against Texas Tech. All right, welcome back, folks. I'm joined here with Jacob Lev and Ryan Sundeen. So let's jump into tomorrow's matchup against Texas Tech. ASU has to go on the road for the first time this season. That's always a challenge. You never know how your team's going to react in hostile territory, especially in a night game in Lubbock. That's not the easiest of scenarios to go into. Right now, Tech is a 7.5-point favorite. But what do you kind of see shaking out? What does Tech do well? How do you think they could give ASU trouble tomorrow?
Well, last year, Pat Mahomes, who's now a quarterback on the Chiefs, lit up ASU's defense. They have a very good offense for quarterbacks, and I'm going to look at Shimonik, and I think he's going to have a big game because this ASU defense, from what we have seen, I don't think that they could stop not just the run, but I'm worried that if they could stop the pass offense. So
I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's Tech's bread and butter. I believe for every season for the last 15 or 16 college football seasons, Tech has finished in the top 10 in the nation in passing offense and points.
Well, I mean, even last year they were the leader in total offense and passing offense. ASU allowed 540 passing yards alone last year, and our secondary is not even up to the challenge, in my opinion. We're very inexperienced, very inexperienced team at ASU, and the way Texas Tech runs their offense, it's very high flying, so they're going to have to put in more cornerbacks for ASU. And are those cornerbacks coming in going to be as good as the ones that we already have out there?
Now, one thing to remember is with all the stats and everything Tech put up last year, they were a 5-7 football team, very similar. ASU finished 5-7, the difference being that one game in September. So the opportunity should be there for the offense to put up points, but I don't know, even with Tech's subpar defense, I don't know if we can really get in, or ASU can get into a shootout, so to speak. I don't know if they can match if Manny Wilkins can go out there and throw 5-6 touchdown passes.
Well, I think we touched on that earlier with the ASU O-line, and we're just not going to they're not going to give him enough time. I'm talking about, obviously, Manny Wilkins. He doesn't have enough time behind that O-line to produce such a high-flying offense as Texas Tech can easily produce.
Well, let's not forget what happened last year when Texas Tech came to visit here in Tempe. Manny Wilkins and Kalen Ballage both found each other a lot. So maybe they could recreate that magic against this kind of weak, subpar Texas Tech defense.
That's true.
Maybe they could recreate that magic, but again, we need the defense to also step up and stop this high-powered offense in Texas Tech.
And one thing to keep in mind here, whereas ASU had kind of a tough, very physical opponent with San Diego State last week, Tech had a bye week. So Tech's been able to get a whole nother week of preparation, a whole nother week of getting ready for ASU and scheming and all that. One name to look out for real quick, Kiki QT. He's the junior, love his name by the way, junior wide receiver for the Red Raiders, and this guy can fly. You talking about early in this game, they're going to try to throw it to number 20, QT. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him catch over 300 yards. He's that type of a player. But also on the flip side of that, N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry, he's going to be put one-on-one against guys that are way undersized against him, so look for N'Keal Harry for ASU to have a big day. That's going to just about do it for our ASU preview against Tech, but real quick, final predictions on the game. Who wins and by how much?
I hate to say it, I do think Texas Tech is going to pull this one out. I don't think ASU's defense is going to be able to stop this offense.
And what do you think, Ryan?
I agree. I don't think ASU is going to be able to stop them. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, maybe up to the 45s, 50 range.
Yeah, I say Tech runs away with this one late, 55-35, somewhere in that range. When we come back, we'll talk about all the big games going on in the world of college football this weekend. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Joined here by Jacob Lev and Ryan Sundeen. So we talked about ASU, but let's look at the broad map of games. Once again, another good weekend. We got a top 10 or top 15 matchup, I should say, with Clemson on the road at Louisville. That's going to be College game day. Obviously, a lot of big names in there, Lamar Jackson being one of them. So let's just go ahead and dive into that one. We'll start with you, Jacob. It's going to be a big atmosphere there, going to be the biggest game of the week. Where do you see that game how do you see it turning out?
Well, I just want to bring it up that there are going to be a lot of NFL scouts here, including, I think, the Colts GM, Chris Ballard, is going to be in Louisville this week. I guess there may be scouting.
Maybe Lamar Jackson.
Maybe Lamar Jackson, because Andrew Luck has not been able to stay healthy. But I do see this game going to be a shootout because they're both high-powered offenses. Clemson might... I do think Clemson is going to pull this one out. I think their defense is just way too good and I think they will be able to stop Lamar Jackson after a while. But it's definitely going to be a high-scoring game for that matter.
What do you see, Ryan?
I totally agree with Jacob. The Clemson defense is very stout, very stout. So it's going to be really hard for Lamar Jackson to get it going. And what Lamar Jackson's Achilles heel has always been is turnovers.
True.
And what is he going to be able to hold on to the ball? He's going to fumble the ball in a weird situation. That's probably why Louisville didn't go to anywhere last year in a big bowl game, because he just turns the ball over. He's a fantastic player, but he just needs to understand when to hold the ball and when to let it loose.
No, absolutely. Well, one thing to remember on Louisville here, the reason they're ranked only number 14 and not top 10 with a guy like Lamar Jackson is Purdue gave them a whole lot of trouble in week one. They had to pull that game out late. And University of North Carolina, who is now 0-2, also gave them a game. I think Louisville ended up winning by about 3 touchdowns, but it was a lot closer than that if you watch the game. So Louisville hasn't exactly come out and ran over people, and that's kind of scary if you consider Clemson's coming to town, who's arguably, to me, he's got one of the best coaches, maybe behind Nick Saban. Dabo Swinney's the best at motivating his team and making sure they're ready to play. So anytime you play Clemson, it's tough, but I don't know. I just have a feeling this is Lamar Jackson's party, just like last year against Florida State when game day was there. He came out and he pretty much took the Heisman Trophy halfway through the season. I think if he has a big game tomorrow night against Clemson, we could see that happen all over again. I would say zero in on Lamar Jackson, see what he does, because this is almost a Heisman-type game.
And then one more thing about Dabo Swinney. He's really good. Chris Ballard might be out there recruiting him.
True.
Actually, instead of Lamar Jackson, I think Dabo Swinney is a better recruit than Lamar Jackson, personally, for the Colts right now.
We'll see.
But not going too far in the NFL.
Yeah, those will be a lot of stars. That game will be at 5 o'clock tomorrow on ABC primetime. Other than that, now we got an interesting matchup here. These are two names that haven't played since the epic Rose Bowl game in season 2005 with Vince Young, of course, over USC. Very dramatic. Probably one of the greatest college football games of all time, if not the best. USC's ranked number 4. Texas is unranked. But what do you kind of see playing out tomorrow night? That's also going to be another night game in the Coliseum. What do you think, Jacob?
Well, I love Tom Herman. I just want to preface this. I think he's one of the best coaches. I think he's in the top 10 range of coaches maybe right now. But this USC team, led by Sam Darnold, I just don't see Texas being able to, that defense being able to stop Sam Darnold. I know they got Malik Jefferson, who's a great player on that Texas defense, but one player is just not going to be able to stop a whole high-powered offense. And I just don't see Texas being able to maintain Sam Darnold, Ronald Jones, all those key USC players.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I totally agree with him. USC is a really solid team. A lot of people think, is USC going to be as good without Sam Darnold? That's a real team without Sam Darnold. They are solid top to bottom. Their defense is great. Their receiving core is fantastic. Tom Herman, I really like him as a coach. Really smart guy, Mensa member. Really good, but they're on different trajectories, these schools. USC is going up. Texas is kind of trying to find themselves right now, and USC is trying to maybe push for a national championship this year, and I don't know who could stop them right now.
Well, one thing I'll say real quick is I wouldn't doubt Tom Herman, especially how they lost that week. They came back last week, won big, 56-0. They'll be ready to go. SC will probably win, but I don't think it's going to be a pushover. I think we might see another good one. Well, it's going to be a busy weekend. I hope everybody has time to watch it on TV. That's all the time we have to talk about it here in the studio. Be sure to check us out every Friday for the College Football Scoop. For Jacob Lev and Ryan Sundeen, I'm Joseph Caulo, and happy football season.